Welcome to January 2021, second Saturday. I have two very special guests here on our second Saturday. John Lewis, the curator of this exhibition, and I also have Bob Cicero, one of the co-owners of Globe Posters. This exhibition is of two different generations of Globe posters. Here you guys go.
Oh, hi. First off, I'd just like to thank Barb Cease and Katie Hurley for having this show at DCA. I'd also like to thank Lisa Krentel, who helped hang it, amazing volunteer. Alyssa at the front desk, who greets everybody who comes in. It's a great group here. So thanks to all of them for making this possible. My association with Globe Poster actually goes back to the days when I was in college, and I would tear Globe posters down off of walls to decorate my room in college. I remember the first one was the George Clinton and P-Funk poster for a show in Baltimore. Second one, I think, was a Chuck Brown show in DC. And the first time I went to Globe Poster was to write a story for the Baltimore Business Journal about Globe Poster, because I was quite a fan, and I noticed that at the bottom of each poster it said Globe Poster, Baltimore, and there was an address and a phone number. And then over the years, I wrote about Globe for the Baltimore City Paper, Baltimore Magazine, Rolling Stone, Vibrations Magazine, in France. And besides being these incredibly vibrant posters, Globe, you can basically trace the development of African American music by looking at the posters Globe has done over the years. From the likes of B.B. King, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Wonder, James Brown, to Tupac. And the company was founded in 1929, and Bob's father started working there 34. When was that? 1934. In 1934? Can you say a little bit about what your dad did when he started in the 30s?
So Dad used to be what they call form boy. He actually used to take all the forms. So all of these letterpress, we used to do a lot of letterpress, so that's how they're printing. So that usually goes into a form where it's all the wood type. So all the wood type is locked up in a form. He would be the one that actually would take everything apart, clean the type, and then put it back in this drawer so that they can use it for the next time. So at any given time, we would probably have close to maybe 200 forms, all total in the shop, and it was constant moving and all that. So from there, then Dad went to actually started printing on the letterpress, which was a big deal. That was like the big step. And then from there, he actually became foreman of Globe Poster for many years, probably around 25 to 30 years. And then back in 1975, my father turned around and wanted to buy Globe, actually a lot earlier than that, the 60s, but he finally got the chance in 75, and that's when he actually did the purchase. And then he brought, I think my brother Frank was the first one, and then Joey, my brother Joey, and then me. I went in there, I think it was April of 75. And so it was a family affair type thing. We had probably, at that time, 8 to 10 employees. So we were really heavy into letterpress. All the background colors, if you take a look at, are all screen printed. That's why we get these vibrant colors. We are known for our fluorescent colors. Fluorescent colors are just so vibrant. And we wanted people to see it at a distance, because one of the things that I always say is that the color of those posters from a distance, you'll see it. And you might not like the colors, but you'll see the poster, and that's what sells. If you like Stevie Wonder, you're definitely going to go to the show.
Well, I was like, Bobby always told me that Globe posters were designed to be seen as you drive past them at 40 miles per hour. and that the fluorescent inks aren't natural in nature or aren't natural, in urban landscapes. So they pop out. So you can see them. They don't just fade into any environment. They literally pop.
If you look outside on a regular day, especially a gloomy day, you see your browns, your greens, your blacks, and whatever. You see one of those fluorescent colors, you see it. And it grabs your attention for that split second. And like I said, the poster was there for you, the color was there to grab your attention for that split second. And once you saw it, if you liked it, fine. If you didn't, you just keep on driving. So it was a catching of the eye. So, how could you not like James Brown, Stevie Wonder, Jimi Hendrix, Bobby Marley, Chuck Checker, my goodness, I love this thing. And the guy with the twist. We were also really good in, if you take a look at the James Brown poster over there, our lettering was really good. Our lettering was just different. It had a flow, it had movement. And that's what people liked about it. It just had like a bounce to it. It moved left, right, left, right, left, right. And so it was different than normal straight type. And like the Stevie Wonder next to it and the Smokey Robinson. We also like to take people and put a silhouette around and all to make in their heads. We would cut around their heads and would pop out the facial feature of these people. Just gave it an altogether different look. We would spend quite a bit of time in doing it because back in those days you didn't have an Apple computer to set your type. You either had wood type or you hand cut it, which took a lot longer to do.
One of the amazing things to me about these posters is the design, the color. It really matches the vibrancy, the vitality of the music from that period. And one of the things that's really fascinating is that these posters were made by blue-collar men in a shop in South Baltimore. And a lot of people are super surprised by that. In fact, we're making a film, been working on it for over 10 years, about the history and legacy of Globe Poster. And John Waters is in the film, and he talks about seeing these when he was growing up. He says all the R&B greats that he adored when he was young, that he went to see, he saw them all advertised via Globe Poster. And he said he wasn't aware of any Globe posters being done for the square white groups like Pat Boone. And he also told us that he had no idea that they were made by white men. So, and there was an in-house designer at Globe who was an artist. Can you say a little something about Harry?
Harry, his name is Harry Curator, and he was such a gentle, quiet person, and he would always walk around and be thinking of designs. And one of the things I never had, I'm a production type person, and my motto is production. I always wanted to get things out. And I used to remember about Harry. Harry had the gift, if you take a look at these posters, of cutting these designs. Now you got to realize all of these were hand cut. This was all hand cut. Most of it. There's some of the small lettering that's done that are typed, but that was all hand cut. So Harry would sit down there, and we would get the poster at the last minute. Naturally, it was last minute, and the people that had to get it out was people like me who had to print it. And I'll never forget, Harry would get a design in his head, and he would walk around for a little bit, and I'm saying to myself, come on, Harry, you've got to get this thing started. And he would just sit there like, looking around, and about 20 minutes later, go over his paper, and he'd just start scribbling all the way down, and he'd start cutting. It was almost like a computer back in the days, just differently done. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking down there, and everything gets all hand cut. And he gives it to me, I run it out there and print. So one of the things that I loved about him, so he would always look at the designs. If you take a look at this poster here, he's got the movement in it, all of this. And one of the things that Globe was really good at, they used to have what they used to call back in the days of the rainbow design, and I'll probably show you that later on in one of them. But we would take the color and put it between each blue. And that makes it easy to read because there's no run on it. So if this was all yellow, like the rainbow design, this would kind of blend in and you know, unless you had just like one word on there. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we got about 7 to 8 acts. But each one can be read very easily at a distance. So that's what made it really nice about it. And then putting these people in here just pulls that whole thing out. If you look at the chubby checker with the twist limbo, if you take a look at the lettering here, now he took his knife and he cut all of this out. It's the twist, so that's what happened. He twisted it. It's the chubby checker, why taking the B and the Y and moving it together. It's the C and the H and the way they tilt. It's the show of the stars. Just, I mean, it almost looks like he was hand-writing it. The lettering is just easy to read, clarity whatsoever, and I don't know, to me, just beautiful. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, he just had that way of taking it. And the V's and the O's have always been something that we were really good at. If you ever take a look at our posters, we had tons of these. The V, the Rolling Stones over there. And you can see the Rolling Stones being part of looking like it is rolling. The Patty and the Bluebells. It's just the way he did things. And also, he actually had made these down here, and so you see one person and the music. It just sticks out like a sore thumb. So by taking color and then framing it, it pulls the lettering out. It makes it so much easier to read.
I mean, that's just stunning to me. Like what we do on our computer now. Like an order would come in, a guy would walk around, get the design in his head or the idea for the lettering, would write it down. It would then go to guys who would actually hand wrap this stuff on wood.
Yes.
And then it would get printed. And just before we move on, how many music posters, at the height of production, you said you're a production person, at the height of production at Globe, how many different music posters would you print on a busy day?
So basically, now this was only so we did several different kind of posters. We did carnival posters, we did commercial work, so but in a given day, every day. But for just the show posters like this, we would do anywhere from 20 to 30, 25 usually around different posters. Now, it's not 25 each, one of each. We usually, the minimum order was 100, all the way up to 300. Oh, actually 500.
So you would be producing 20 to 25 different posters a day and running, so you might print 2,000 to 3,000 posters in a day.
So easy.
Easy.
Yeah, easy.
That's
We used to go through, I think if I remember, about 8 to 10 tons of cardboard.
8 to 10 tons of cardboard.
We used to get it from a company called Simpkins. Because that was also the cardboard. I mean, the cardboard we used to get, it was also for the carnivals. So that was all cardboard too. So we had a big production, and then we used to do a lot of commercial work. And the commercial work would require banners and bumper stickers and political.
Okay, real quick, as we go through here, can we just, here are photos that were taken at Globe, I think in 1990, 1991. There's Bob on a Mealy letterpress, which was what, a German press, weighs tons.
So it weighs around 23,000 pounds. The size of it was 9 inches, 9 feet by 18 feet.
9 feet by 18 feet.
And it would print, that press there printed a 35 by 45. We had 2 other presses. We had 8 of them at one time. At that place, which was Bird Street, we only had 5. And we had 2 large presses that printed 41 by 41 by 60.
So that's Bob running the letterpress. This is his younger brother, Joe Jr., in shipping and receiving. His dad, Joe Sr., in the office running the whole ship.
Yeah.
And his brother, Frank, who would take orders out front and also did some of the designs or did a lot of the designs, later after Harry left.
Yeah, he would actually do pencil designs of it. So what he got to, in between when he took orders, he would actually take stencil paper and then actually create the poster himself. and he wouldn't draw the lettering the way it was. He would pull the type out and everything, and then he would give it to somebody to set the type. And we have quite a bit of that artwork. The globe was actually archived by John Hopkins and Micah. And so they have, in the library, they have a lot of that old stuff at the library for Hopkins.
And Bob's dad, Joe, used to tell me too how when that artists so often would call in their own orders. Tina Turner used to call in her orders. Who else? Solomon Burke. When we interviewed him in Los Angeles, he used to call in his orders.
We had, it was a lot. I was mostly in the back, but so then this is a real classic James Brown poster for the entire family.
And then here's that rainbow design you referenced.
So if you got only a few letters and stuff like that, it's okay because it doesn't break. But if you had it breaking up in between, it's harder to read. So sometimes that'll make it harder, but that's why we went to the other. But it's a different poster. It's the old style. That's Solomon Burke. That was the last poster we did for Solomon. And that was
Yeah.
Now, something fascinating happened along the way here is that these very utilitarian posters meant to go up on walls and telephone poles and seen while you're driving past at 40 miles per hour became highly collectible as art objects. So these designs became somewhat iconic as reflective of the R&B, soul, funk music, especially in the 60s and 70s. And we were talking a little while ago that it's not uncommon now for globe posters to sell for thousands of dollars, be included in museums such as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum has selections of globe posters. The Stax Museum of American Soul Music in Memphis. The National Museum of African American History has a display of globe and its history. So globe, these posters were also featured in coffee table books. They have become art objects. Can you say a little something about that, Bob, and how that, were you surprised when people started calling you saying that they collect these posters?
You know, all we ever did was worry about getting the poster out. That's all I worried about. And did it look decent and did it come out right? And we never got compliments usually at all. I mean, every now and then we'd somebody say, hey, you did a great job and all that, but we never got compliments that it was art. You know, we just did our posters, and then I think it was towards the end when Globe was closing and all that we finally started to get different people come out and say, oh, this is really artwork. And it was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. This is what we're doing. And it was great to see him have something said like that, because I never looked at it that way until somebody else had said it. So it was a great, I guess when you work as hard and as long as we all did down there, my brother Frank and Joe and me, you usually get retired and then you fade away. But when somebody says something about you, it just kind of like makes you feel so good. It's like, oh my God, I can continue. At least I did something and somebody actually recognized it. That's what I like about it.
Well, it's incredibly ironic too that as that was happening, as Globe is being looked at, these posters again, as pieces of art, as collectible. At the same time, some cities were passing legislation They were calling, in fact, the DC legislation, it refers to them as visual trash. And that promoters could be fined $500 a poster for posting these in the city. And part of the problem with that is that if I'm a promoter and I staple this up to a wall and it just stays there, and somebody reports it and it fades or it's all tattered, it looks trashy. If I come along, it's your company's name at the bottom. That's who I'm going to go to.
Yeah, we used to get a lot of phone calls from people saying, you got to take your posters down. I said, I didn't put them up.
but what effect did that have on your business?
It was the death of us. And you know, I said it so many times, I couldn't fight City Hall. I mean, you know, once they put the label down and once they found people, we used to get people to come in there, and so there was two things that they used to have. It was flyers, small flyers, the little handouts, and the posters. Well, so my whole theory was, and it worked for years, you put 2 to 3 posters on a main street, and let's say it's in Washington, D.C., and it's on a main drag, you probably have 15,000 people looking at that a day. So if I handed you a little slick, they used to call them, the little 3x5 handout cards, you take it, and usually it's at a bar, and usually you had a couple beers or whatever, and you're drinking, having a good time. You grab it in your hand, you put it in here, in your top pocket. Then when you go home, when you take your clothes off, you throw it in the trash. You know what I mean? Because you don't usually keep it. And you forget about it. But my posters are there all the time. So that's why they like our posters. And it was just a good way of seeing our artwork. And so, like I say, you get 15,000 people to see 2 or 3 of your posters a week. And then you put them all around the city where it's really busy. You know, we always tell them to go to supermarkets. Everybody's got to go to a supermarket, a food store, a liquor store, cash carrying store. Anywhere that you know there's going to be a lot of traffic. And like I said, one poster can bring in thousands and thousands. And the other good thing is, one of the things we used to hear from our customers, the posters were so effective because people would do it at the last minute. So they would be on a Friday night, and they would, you know, they'd go and say, well, how much? Oh, I can go out. I got enough money to go out. And then they walk out the door and say, oh, this rain's going to be, let's go. Let's see if we can get that show. Mm-hmm. So if you had a flyer in your hand, that's gone. You don't know where's that. So it's you know, it's even better than the news. You know, it's even better than radio, because radio used to have problems with, you know, they would, you know, sometimes if they had their own show, they would put that own show on instead of yours.
Right. So that legislation, that was really the death of Globe, the death of these posters. And when we started our film, a good friend of mine, Ray, and I, we thought we were really just documenting the legacy and history of Globe with a very sad ending. We were there at the end. You know, we thought we were sort of documenting the demise. In fact, we filmed Bob as he locked the door for the last time when everything was empty in the shop. And then kind of an amazing thing happened. If we could just, Bob and Frank, his brother, had gotten any number of offers to sell, fairly lucrative offers, to sell the collection and what they had at Globe, the type, the posters, the forms, all of it. And they could have made quite a haul of cash by selling it to collectors, memorabilia collectors, museums, etc., and breaking up the collection. They didn't do that. Instead, they made a commitment to keep it together, to keep it in Baltimore, and to make sure it went to a learning institution. And it went to the Maryland Institute College of Art, MICA, purchased the Globe collection, and they hired Bob. This is a beautiful move. They hired Bob to teach printmaking. So now, instead of Globe completely fading away and being, you know, a footnote in history, it's been reinvented. And now there are people learning the Globe way directly from Bob, young people, and going out in the world making letterpress posters like these. These are all posters, a small selection of posters that have been made over the past, 7, 8 years since Globe was reborn at the art school with Bob and Mary Mashburn and Allison Fisher, who manages the Globe collection for Micah. And a lot of these posters were done with Micah interns, and you can see they retain a lot of those traditional Globe elements, but they've been reborn, they've been repurposed.
Wonderful. Thank you guys for sharing your history and the history of Globe posters. Definitely come in and check out the exhibit. It's here until the end of the month, and there are wonderful, fantastic posters on display. Thank you again.